unique offseason for the New York Yankees and New York Mets. The Yankees lose Soto. He goes to the Mets. The Mets sign him for 700 and some bodacious, contract. What was it? $765 million. It's ridiculous. And then the Yankees spread out the wealth. They get Max Fried. They added a relief pitcher. They added some, quality arms and quality bats to their lineup. What were your thoughts to the offseason for the New York Yankees and New York Mets?
The Mets obviously wanted Soto, got Soto, and it did affect the rest of their offseason, but they have never been under David Stearns, and I don't know that they ever will be a team that invests long-term in starting pitching. So the question with this team as we enter the season is not their lineup with Soto and Alonso now. It's going to be really good. My question is going to be their starting pitching, and will it be good enough? And as for the Yankees, I thought they recovered well. And obviously, when you get the star caliber players that they acquired, Max Fried, Devin Williams, these guys are big time in the sport. Paul Goldschmidt has a big time legacy in the sport. And they seem to me to be a team that is going to be okay. Probably the class of the American League still, even without Soto, because the American League is not what it was when Joba was playing. At the same time, they could use one more infielder. They're kind of lacking there. And I just want to see it all come together for them and see how it comes together, because they still have some of the same questions that they had at the end of last season. Are they athletic enough? Are they good enough defensively? We're going to find out, and Cody Bellinger certainly will help in that regard, but I'm still not sure that they're going to be at the level of some of the better teams in the National League, put it that way.
This deferred money that the Dodgers are really just imploding in the MLB. And it's been around for a long, long time, but they're the only team that's really, using this to their ability. Do you look at this deferred money for the next, I think the next CBA deal, I think, is in 2026. Do you see, baseball trying to figure this out and try to stop this? Because this, to me, is unfair right now. Does this help baseball or does it make it worse?
Earl, a lot of people are asking this question, but it's in the CBA. The league does not mind players deferring money, and the union does not mind players deferring money. Now, Rob Manfred, the commissioner, has said there comes a point where you might be worried, but people don't really understand necessarily how the deferrals work. It's not as if you can just wait until 2034 or whatever the year might be to start paying it out. You've got 2 years from the time you sign the player. I believe it's 2 years, and you have to fund it. You have to put the money away and invest it, however you do it. And there are certain rules and regulations the team has to follow in putting that money away. It can't go in certain kinds of accounts. It can only go in pretty safe ones. So every team has the ability to do this. Now, obviously, the Dodgers have more money than most, almost everybody perhaps, but they're not doing anything wrong. Now, might the Dodgers and their spending force this big issue in the CBA? Is that an excuse the other owners are going to use to complain that they need a salary cap? That could be. I can see that happening, but it won't be over the deferrals per se. It will be over their overall spending.
Vlad Guerrero has been in so many trade talks, and there are conversations that if he becomes a free agent, the Mets are going to pay him $500, $600 million. They'll give him whatever he wants because he's friends with Lindor, he's friends with Soto, and that's where he's going. What are your thoughts? Do you think Vlad gets traded in the middle of the season at the trade deadline, or does the Blue Jays hold on to him and try to re-sign him at the end of next season?
The first question is whether he signs an extension before their first full day of workouts, which is February 18th. That's something the Blue Jays want to get done. They have a lot of money, obviously, that they haven't spent because so many guys have turned them down in the last 2 years. But I'm not convinced he wants to sign an extension with them when he can go out into the market in just 1 year, actually less than that, 8 months or so, and be a top free agent, the top free agent in next year's class. And he'd have the Mets, he'd have a number of teams. The Yankees could be in the mix too for him. So the odds of that extension happening, I'd say probably are 50-50. I expect the Jays to tempt him. I expect them to make him an offer that's going to be well into an area where he says, maybe I should take this. But at the same time, he would be a free agent entering his age 27 season. I know he's a first baseman, but he's an elite hitter, and he probably on the open market would do really well still, and he'd have his choice of teams at that point.
Do you think with the way these contracts are going right now and just the crazy numbers that keep coming up, and do you think there'll ever be a salary cap or some type of cap in place not necessarily a salary cap. Obviously, we have the collective bargaining tax and all that. But do you think there will ever be, and I know the unions fought for it forever to not have one. Do you think there will ever be any legs for them to, as the owners, to try and cap it?
Well, Java, you remember this when you were a player. They try every collective bargaining
Yep.
negotiation, and the players fight it, and they fight it, and they're going to fight it again. I expect the owners will try. I expect the players will fight it, and I expect we're going to have a lockout in the year 2027
Wow.
because this is the way this seems to be going. Now, I hope I'm wrong, but there's a lot of talk already among the ownership circles, the club circles, that this is the way they want to go, and this is something the sport absolutely needs. I think it's a bogus thing to say. Sport generated a record amount of revenue last season, $12.1 billion. Obviously, it's not broken. There are things that need to be done to maybe make it more equitable from a financial perspective. We all get that. And there are things that can be done. But a cap in this sport, I still see it as a long shot because of the players' vehement opposition to it. Now, you could say when you have a salary cap, the players get a certain percentage of the revenue. And isn't there a percentage where they would be satisfied? That to me is the question here. But even then, the arguments then would become not about the cap anymore, but about the percentage and about what the owners are declaring as revenue and what is not being declared as revenue. So it's just shifting the argument. It's not really solving the problem. I don't know that it can ever be solved. The sport is built differently than the NFL. The NFL is built on the national television contract, and that is distributed fairly and equitably to all the teams. Baseball teams, or the baseball league, Major League Baseball, is based on local revenue, attendance, local television contracts. It's not the same. There is a national television package, different networks involved, but that money is not as big as it is in the NFL, where it actually is every game is on a network television broadcast. So I don't know where it's going exactly, but I do expect a fight.